3 women killed in cold blood in a small apartment in the heart of Paris. The murderer is presumed to be someone close to the victims. An entire community is in shock. This could be a good starting point for a thriller, don't you think? But this is very much a true story. This triple murder was committed on January the 9th, 2013 in Paris. And if we take a closer look at the profile of the protagonists, this incident appears to be a state affair. The victims are 3 Kurdish militants. Sakine Cansiz, 54, was one of the founders of the PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party. Fidan Doğan, 30, was in charge of the party's lobbying efforts. Leyla Salimez, 25, was a young militant. This suspect, Omer Guney, a Turk who is currently imprisoned in France while awaiting trial, was not just a simple murderer, but a secret agent on a mission. A delicate affair for the French authorities.
Soyez assurés de la détermination des autorités françaises pour faire la lumière sur cet acte. Merci.
Est-ce que c'est un crime politique selon vous?
Je vous remercie.
Monsieur Valls, est-ce que c'est un crime politique?
A crime which implicates one of France's biggest strategic allies, Turkey, and its current president, Erdogan.
Doğrudan her şey Erdoğan'ın bilgisi dahilindedir.
The Kurds suspect a political assassination. Was Omer Guney working for someone? We travel to Turkey, France, Germany, Switzerland and Belgium to investigate the man implicated by all the evidence. A man is defended tooth and nail by his loved ones.
Yani bir daha burada rahatsız edersem ben bu adamların bir tanesini gebertirim burada.
An investigation that upsets the Turkish authorities.
Bütün röportajı iptal edelim, kasetleri de alalım. Bu böyle gitmeyecek çünkü yani.
Who stood to gain by making these 3 women disappear? The triple murder took place at the beginning of 2013, barely 200 metres from the Gare du Nord train station in Paris. For the relatives of the 3 assassinated women, coming here is always an ordeal. This morning, Selma, a young Kurd living in Paris, welcomes the brother of one of the victims.
Zayıflamışsın.
Vallahi biraz zayıfladım.
Metin Cansiz lives in Rotterdam. He's the younger brother of Sakine Cansiz, one of the 3 Kurds assassinated on the 9th of January 2013. For 3 years, he's been unable to return to the place where his sister was killed. Today, he's going to take that step. Sakine and her colleagues were found dead on the first floor of this building, the office of the Kurdish movement in France. The police tape still hasn't been removed. The Kurds have made this place into a sanctuary. Behind the door, the crime scene is intact.
Yani Sakine'ye kendimi daha yeniden yakın hissediyorum, yeniden yanında hissediyorum. Çünkü ben onu şey olarak kabul etmedim, şimdi hala etmiyorum, etmeyeceğim de. Çünkü o dağlar da onsuz yaşayamaz, onu da biliyorum. O da onlarsız yaşayamıyor, dağlar da onsuz yaşayamıyor. Sakine ezilmiş bir halkın temsilcisiydi, bir halk temsili katledilmek istendi burada. Sadece o üçünün bedenlerin katledilmesi yok ortada. Bana göre insanlık katledildi burada, ezilmişlik katledildi, kadın katledildi burada, bir ulus katledilmek istendi burada.
This nation is the Kurdish nation, and Sakine had become one of its emblems. She built her legend far from Paris in the mountains of Kurdistan. There, 35 million Kurds live, divided between Iran, Iraq, Syria, and especially Turkey. In Turkey, Kurds call for their autonomy and the recognition of their identity. But the Turkish state violently represses this minority. Heavy-handed raids on Kurdish areas. Arbitrary arrests, like here in the southeast of the country. The Turks even went as far as destroying 3,000 villages and killing thousands of Kurds. In 1978, to combat this oppression, Sakine Cansiz created the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, with Abdullah Öcalan, the head of the rebellion, seen here paying tribute to her.
Benden daha cesaretli ve hatta gözü peksin. Fedakarlığı.
The PKK advocates armed combat against the Turkish state. Like all the leaders of the party, Sakine travels through the villages and calls on the Kurds to revolt. In just a few years, the PKK causes serious problems for the Turkish army and becomes the bête noire of the regime. Thousands of Kurds are arrested. Sakine was one of the first prisoners. In 1979, she was incarcerated in the renowned Diyarbakir prison in the southeast of Turkey. Her brother Metin was also imprisoned there. For 8 years, he was tortured daily.
Ve dünyanın, yani Diyarbakır özellikle dünyanın eşi enderi olmayan bir cezaeviydi. Yani öyle bir vahşet dünyada başka bir cezaevinde görülmemiş. Okuduğumuz kadarıyla o döneme kadar her döneminde yaşadığımız şeyi anlatıyorum. Yani her saatinde yaşadığımız şey bu normal olarak. Oradan geliyor, çok basit bir bahaneyle diyor ki uzat ellerini burada. İşte sen diyor ne düşündün örneğin? Elini oradan uzatıyorsun dışarıya. Kazma ve balta sapları var ağaç gürgenden. Onlarla vuruyorlar ama kim vuruyor, nasıl vuruyor, kaç kişi vuruyor bilmiyorsun. Ellerin bir süre sonra parmak araları patlamaya başlıyor, yarılmaya başlıyor ve eller düz tutamıyorsun. Artık eller kasılmaya başlıyor. Ve Sakine'nin onlara karşı haykırması dilden dile anlatılıyordu. Sakine dönüyor Esat Oktay'a, işkence yapan Esat Oktay'a diyor ki siz diyor benim göğsümü, bir kadının göğsünü kesmeye utanmıyorsanız ben karşınızda bir devrimci olarak ah demeye utanıyorum.
Years of incarceration and torture did nothing to diminish Sakine's determination. In 1991, she was released after 12 years in prison. She took up arms and became a heroine for all Kurdish fighters. But in 2001, the United States put the PKK on their list of terrorist organizations. When Sakine obtained her status as a political refugee in France, her brother was relieved.
Yani ben ablamın Avrupa'da vurulabileceğini hiç hayalinden bile geçirmezdim. Yani biz dağda öldürülebileceğini her zaman bekliyorduk, düşünüyorduk. Çok arkadaşlar öldürüldü. Fakat biz Avrupa'da, özellikle de Paris'te böyle bir cinayeti aklımızın ucundan bile geçirmezdik yani. Hiç düşünemiyorduk bile yani.
For Nursel, a key figure in the Kurdish community in France, the murder of 3 of her friends is a message from Turkey, a political message.
Moi, je considère ce triple assassinat comme un assassinat politique, mais des 3 générations. Cet assassinat politique, il visait l'histoire du peuple kurde, de la résistance du peuple kurde, donc Sakine. La voix du peuple kurde, donc Rojbin Fidan. Elle faisait beaucoup de lobbying dans les instances européennes, au Conseil de l'Europe notamment. Et la jeunesse, l'avenir du peuple kurde, Leyla.
The French justice's investigation into this matter is now closed. A Turkish suspect is behind bars. His name is Omer Guney. A few months before the crime, he was hired as a driver by Sakine Cansiz. He is the last person to have seen the victims alive. Traces of gunpowder were found in his bag. This, and above all his activities the day of the murders, made him the prime suspect. Suspicious comings and goings filmed by surveillance cameras that we recovered. The morning of the incident, at 10:30 a.m, he meets Sakine Cansiz at the post office in Bobigny to take her back to Paris by car. At 11:19 a.m, they go into a parking lot near to Gare du Nord station. At 11:29 a.m, Omer Guney and Sakine Cansiz join Fidan and Leyla, the two other victims, at 147 Rue Lafayette, the office of the Kurdish movement in France. In his hand, he's holding a brown leather bag. Omer Guney comes out 20 minutes later, still carrying the bag, alone. He goes back to the parking lot. At noon, we see him busying himself in the trunk of the car for 2 minutes. Then, at 12:11 p.m, he once again goes into the building. He stays there for 45 minutes. According to the experts, it's around that time when the 3 Kurdish militants in the apartment were shot. When Omer Guney comes out of the building at around 1 p.m, he's strangely covering his head with a hood, even though it isn't raining. Omer Guney is no longer carrying a brown leather bag, but has a white plastic bag with a dark object inside. At 1:07 p.m, he drives his car out of the parking lot alone. 8 days after the triple murder, Omer is remanded in custody. Since 2013, he's been awaiting trial in a cell in Fresnes prison, claiming his innocence. But who really is Omer Guney? How did this young Turk become the driver of the icon for the Kurdish struggle? The first time that he appeared in the community, in autumn 2011, is at the Kurdish Cultural Association in Villiers-le-Bel, to the north of Paris. The organisation may not look much, but it is here that the highest leaders of the Kurdish movement in Europe can be found. The president of the organisation still remembers the impression that Omer Guney made when he pushed open their door.
La première fois quand j'ai vu ici, j'ai jamais vu ces personnes-là. Il a plutôt une tête des Turcs que des Kurdes, parce que nous, on se connaît entre nous.
Vous l'avez pas posé trop de questions finalement?
Je n'ai pas posé de questions. D'une manière, c'est pas mon genre d'avoir posé de questions de son origine, de son identité ou son religion. Je ne pose pas de questions. Notre ordinateur,
At the time, when Omer Guney introduces himself to the organisation, he has a reassuring profile. A young, divorced Turk looking to find his Kurdish roots. He's 30 years old and quickly becomes close to some of the younger members like Bayram and Kenan.
Kendisinin ailesi tarafından dışlandığını söyledi. Ailemin genellikle Kürtlere şey olduğunu söyledi. Sevmediğini söyledi. Ben Kürtlere çok yakınım, çok seviyorum. Bu tür yaklaşımlarla geldi. Biz de o amaçla yani aramıza geldi, oturdu yani sohbetle. Comment vous pourriez décrire sa personnalité? Il était comment?
Çok efendi, çok iyi. Yani iyi kendini gösteriyordu. En ufak bir şeyle ama kendisi geliyordu, size yardımcı olayım, ben dil biliyorum, şunu biliyorum, oraya koşuyordu, buraya koşuyordu.
Omer spoke several languages. He was heavily involved in the life of the organisation.
C'est lui ça? Il a adhéré très vite?
très vite. Très vite, il me semblait que dans la semaine où il est venu la première fois, il a adhéré.
Il a adhéré le 18 novembre 2011.
C'est ça.
He quickly establishes a network far beyond the walls of the Villiers-le-Bel organisation and little by little gets closer to the leaders of the PKK. His ex-flatmate in Seine-Saint-Denis witnessed him climbing the ranks.
C'était un séducteur?
Yani sevme derken tamamen bağlı olduğunu görebiliyorduk, görüyorduk ya da oradan yanıldık.
Il vous en parlait beaucoup.
Mücadele hasta olduğunu, tamamen çizgi takip ettiğini, gerçekten en iyi Kürdüm bazen zaman zaman dediği bile falan oluyordu.
Omer Guney, the best of the Kurds. However, when you scratch the surface, another face appears, far from that of the friendly activist. To uncover the real Omer Guney, we have to follow his path back to Turkey, his place of birth. That's where his parents settled after the trouble. Does he really have Kurdish origins, as he claims? Since we started our investigation, we've tried to get an interview via Omer's lawyer. But without success, the prime suspect's parents refused to talk to us. After the crime, they lost everything, their restaurant in Paris and, above all, their peace. Fearing reprisals, they left France and now live in the suburbs of Ankara. I think it's there. This is where Omer Guney's parents live. I think they're going to be delighted to see us. We're going to wait until someone comes out to go in. Ah, there's a noise. I think we can go. Omer Guney's parents know that we want to meet them. We don't expect a warm reception. So we opted for a hidden camera. It's Omer Guney's father who opens the door. Hello, I'm Sylvain Louvet.
Sylvain Louvet.
Dégage-le.
Ok.
Je suis allé chez Canel. Pourquoi? Politicien.
Ok.
C'est quoi le délire là? Pourquoi je me suis regardé pareil?
Je m'en fous.
Ok.
Je m'en fous là. Je suis allé chez.
Don't get angry. We're just looking for people who really knew Omer Guney, who can talk to us about him. His daughter, then his wife, tried to calm him down. Without succeeding.
Beni bir daha burada rahatsız edersen ben bu adamların bir tanesini gebertirim burada. Sonra benim oğlum ne yapmış? 80 sayfalık Fransa hükümeti 80 sayfalık rapor veriyor. Bir tanesi benim oğlumun suçlu içinde bir madde yok. Buradan hemen dışarı çekip gidin. Kapının önünde. Orada bekleyin isterseniz. Polis geliyor zaten. Tamam hadi.
We leave without having been able to ask if Kurdish blood is really running through Omer Guney's veins. But we'll find out a bit more with one of his uncles.
Omer Guney in France say that he's Kurdish. Are you Kurdish family? Patriot?
The man doesn't know that we're filming him. He tells us that, despite what Omer says, the Guney family are Turkish and proud of it.
Ama bizim için tamamen ters. Bir tane çocuk oğlum var benim. O Ömer de büyük. O da abim bir oluyor. Eğer bugün bu çocuk bu ülke için PKK'nın karşısında savaşıp şehit olacaksa bugün göndermeye hazır. Ama şu anda Türkiye onlarla bir savaş veriyorsa biz Türkiye tarafındayız ve Türkiye'yi destekliyoruz. Sonuna kadar da destekleyeceğiz.
His uncle is not the only one to have this radical vision. Omer Guney apparently also hated the PKK, and that's something that we discover in Germany. Bad Tölz, a small, sleepy town 1 hour away from Munich, where Omer Guney lived between 2004 and 2011. Here, the Turkish community is very close-knit. Everybody knew him. But in his local cafes, the Turks seem to have lost their memories.
Non?
You're smiling. You've heard of him. After half a day going around the town, we finally found someone who would talk to us about Omer Guney, and not just anyone. Hello, do you know this person?
Also, diese kenne ich, diese war bei Tölz. Diese war mein Nachbar.
He was your neighbour?
Der Nachbar war das.
Aus meiner Stadt, ich kenne. Bad Tölz, er war in Bad Tölz. Er ist Okay. Seine Spitzname, alle kennen Okay.
He wasn't a Kurdish militant.
Kann er nicht sein. Er hat diese Ringe gehabt, Wolke, und dann hat dieser Bart. Er war diese Zeichen.
Ouais, Löwen.
Non.
Graue Löwen, ne?
Er war diese. Wolf, gegen Terrorist war er. Das ist Wolf, diese gegen Terrorist-Türkei-Partei.
What does grey wolves mean? Why grey wolves?
Diese Zeichen. Das ist ein Logo, ist das. Zum Beispiel Peugeot. Frankreich auch Wolf. Das ist so ein Zeichen.
Except grey wolves isn't really like a car brand. Or if it was, it would be cars that plough into Kurds. With their emblem of the three moons and their distinctive hand gesture, the grey wolves are easy to recognise. They emerged in the 1960s in Turkey as the armed wing of the nation's extreme right. Known for their violence, the grey wolves have been increasingly active towards the Kurdish community, all with the indulgence of the Turkish regime. And it's in this movement that we find the real roots of Omer Guney. And it's not the only thing he hid from the French Kurdish community. In Germany, we make another discovery. That's the factory where Omer Guney worked. I think so. We'll try to talk to some of his former colleagues. This man was Omer Guney's colleague for 5 years. He's going to reveal another aspect of his personality, a passion that Guney had hidden from the Kurds in Villiers-le-Bel.
Ich weiß nur eins, dass der war so ein, der hat Waffen so geliebt, so ungefähr, aber...
Really? You spoke to him about it?
Ja, der hat immer hier selber erzählt, wo wir in der Pause zusammengesessen haben.
What did he say exactly?
Ja, das ist ja total verrückt danach ist. Er hat, einmal hat er sich da reingeschlichen, um das Geräusch zu hören von den Kugeln, wie sich das anfühlt.
Did he ever say where this shooting range was?
Vielleicht ist war nicht so offiziell, vielleicht war das nicht. Weil in einen Schießstand zu gehen, muss man Waffenschein und alles haben. Und er hat das, glaube ich, nicht gehabt. Hat alles illegal gemacht.
This is the right, okay? Bitte, verlassen das Gelände, okay? Freundlich, bitte.
The interview is interrupted again. You'd think that Omer Guney is a taboo subject. Leaving Germany, one thing is sure. The image that he gave to the Kurdish community in France is the total opposite of who he really was. So why this double dealing? Why did this gun lover with a Turkish nationalistic background spend nearly 2 years playing the Kurdish activist? For the community who are exiled in France, this double dealing is the work of a professional. And every Wednesday for 3 years, they state this loud and clear in front of the crime scene.
Nous demandons à la France de tout mettre en œuvre pour identifier, interpeller, juger les auteurs et les commanditaires de ce triple assassinat politique.
For them, Omer Guney wasn't just a murderer, but a Turkish Secret Service agent who infiltrated their community.
Jusqu'aux commanditaires qui sont pourtant connus. Ni les
La France sait qui c'est, nous savons qui c'est. Quelqu'un a été donc capturé depuis cet attentat, mais on sait très bien que derrière cet homme-là qui a fait ça se cache la Turquie.
Turkey, or more precisely MIT, the Turkish Secret Service, a much feared institution. The Turkish equivalent of the CIA. In the period following the crime, several troubling clues pointed to Omer Guney having links with the Turkish secret services. Firstly, an email sent by a mysterious individual to the police headquarters in Paris only 11 days after the murders. The police have not identified who wrote this email accusing the Turkish Secret Service. But a few days after it was received, a new witness corroborates the idea that Omer Guney was a Turkish secret agent. The testimony of Murat Şahin. 3 weeks after the crime, this man told a Kurdish newspaper that Guney definitely had links with the MIT. And he knows what he's talking about. He's a former Turkish agent. A refugee in Switzerland, he agreed to meet us. And that's how we find ourselves on this fine morning in Zurich station. Without knowing the place or the time of our meeting. Our only means of contact being the phone number of the ex-Turkish agent's father. I've just received a new message. It's a new contact number for Murat Şahin's father. He's very careful. Yes, hello, it's Sylvain Louvet from Canal+. Hello, I'm calling to find out how we can find each other. You don't want to give me the address? The ex-secret agent's father joins us on the parking lot somewhere in Zurich. It's as if we're in a spy film.
Sylvain,
hello, how are you? Ah, you don't want us to film you?
D'accord.
Dangereux.
Wary, we finished the journey in his car. It's only once we're in the presence of his son that we're allowed to turn the cameras back on.
Bonjour.
Hello.
Hello.
Murat Şahin was an MIT agent for nearly 5 years. He has officially stopped all spying activities.
MIT weiß alles. MIT ist sogar für mich, ist MIT stärker als Mossad oder mit CIA. MIT arbeitet wirklich sehr gut. Sie wissen alles.
After the murders, when Omer Guney is identified as the prime suspect, a photo of him goes around the world on the internet. Murat Şahin recognizes him straight away. 2 years before, one of his superiors had showed him exactly the same photo in Turkey.
Das war in Ankara.
And you, Murat, what are your thoughts? Was Omer Guney an MIT agent or not?
Egal welches Geheimnis, sag nicht, das ist unser Mitarbeiter. Das sage ich nicht. Das ist nicht normaler Job. Das ist nicht normale Arbeit. Das ist kein Journalist, das ist kein Restaurant, Beschäftigung. Nein, das ist anders. Meine Gefühle, meine Gedanken, ich glaube, hat nicht direkt Kontakt mit MIT. Ich glaube, Kontakt andere Person, diese Person Kontakt mit. Ich denke.
Why did you agree to meet us today?
Ja, ich habe akzeptiert, weil ich wollte, dass jeder weiß, was dahinter steckt. Ja, auf diese Attentat oder.
In plain English, for this former agent, Guney was certainly linked to the Turkish Secret Service. Besides these secrets, there is also material proof. Notably, the contents of Guney's telephones that were seized by the French police. In Turkey in 2014, a journalist who is now a member of parliament called Directory Assistance to find out who Omer Guney's phone contacts belonged to. And bingo! The operator revealed that one of the numbers belonged to the Turkish Secret Service. And to prove it to us, he called Directory Assistance again in front of us.
Bir numarayı sorgulamak istiyoruz da nereye ait olduğunu.
Tabii.
0442
0442
1209.
1209. Evet, şu an bu numara Erzurum Milli İstihbarat Teşkilatı olarak kayıtlı çıkıyor.
Tamam. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Yönlendirme şirketimiz tarifini sizden önce yönlendirecektir. Numarayla görüşmek ister misiniz?
Yok, sağ olasın. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Razı olsun, teşekkür ederiz.
Sağ ol.
So?
MIT Erzurum.
Erzurum in the north of the country, a key site for the Turkish secret services. We surprised that goes to Erzurum?
Erzurum biraz daha operasyonel bir alandır. Bütün kontrgerilla faaliyetleri Erzurum merkezli örgütlenmiştir. Sembolik bir merkez olabilir. Ömer Güney'in muhtemelen geçmişte irtibat kurduğu birileri o birimde çalışıyordur.
As we followed our investigation, another number attracted our attention, that of Cevdet Ergun. In Ankara, Cevdet Ergun was the right-hand man of the Guney family. He carried out all administrative tasks for Ömer's parents. It's to Cevdet's address that the new passport of the prime suspect was supposed to be delivered. On this little piece of paper found in Guney's belongings, he had even named Cevdet as the person to contact in case of a medical emergency. The French police had never heard of this mysterious Cevdet Ergun. We got hold of these telephone statements, which proved that in the month preceding the triple murder in Paris, he called the Turkish Secret Service in Erzurum around 100 times. We showed these telephone statements to our Turkish politician and, visibly, given his reaction, he wasn't aware of them.
It's very important. It's very important and you should keep them. MİT'e doğrudan temas kurarlarsa kendilerini fişlemiş olurlar.
For him, these telephone statements are a proof that the Turkish secret services are behind the murder of the 3 Kurdish militants.
No one can call MIT in Turkey. If you call to MIT and if you tell that I am a person, I'm a member of Turkey, I want to speak with someone, they will never give you answer. If you are talking with MIT, I saw that they speaking more than 10 minutes. That means they are working with MIT. They are a member of MIT. You have to be careful. Also, they are very important. I saw them. It's very important document, okay?
Okay.
Of course, we would have liked to hear Cevdet Ergun tell us his role in the events, but he's since passed away from cancer. Other clues found by the French police in Guney's telephone show that he was indeed a spy. During the 2 years he spent in the heart of the Kurdish community, he took photographs with his telephone and sent these to a mysterious correspondent. For example, less than 24 hours before the assassination of the 3 Kurdish militants, towards midnight, Omer Guney goes into the office of the president of the Kurdish Cultural Association in Villiers-le-Bel. He photographs and sends the files of 329 members of the organisation. And this isn't the only act of spying he carried out. Other documents were also sent, like these notes on the Kurdish organisation's financing. Real secret agent activity uncovered by the French investigators. The Kurds of Villiers-le-Bel only discovered that Guney had been spying on them 8 days after the murders, when he was remanded in custody. This double dealing is as hard to take as the murder itself and leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of a whole community.
C'est un sentiment assez choquant et perturbant. À la fois, vous avez d'une l'âne qui monte à l'intérieur, mais de l'autre côté, nous quand même, on est d'une certaine manière, on est fautif.
Do you feel like you set the cat amongst the pigeons?
Peut-être, mais sans savoir.
Sana inanamıyor. Yani içinden çıkacak ve sana vuracaksın.
Nasılken farkına varmadık o orospu çocuğun böyle olduğunu pardon. Kusura bakma. Yani bu kadar işimize girmesine, o kadar şey yapmasına insanın psikolojiden gidiyor.
Herkes Kürtlerden de bir açık, yani yakalayabilecek gücü de var olsaydı bile buna müdahale ederdi. O yüzden herkes yani kendini burada suçlu hissediyor ister istemez.
If Omer Guney was acting as a professional, an agent on a mission, where were the orders coming from? Do we need to look up to the highest Turkish authorities? One year after the attacks, two new worrying documents are made public. The first is published by a Turkish newspaper. It's a mission order attributed to the secret services. It's dated a few weeks before the triple murder in Paris. It gives the names of 4 heads of the MIT and orders the assassination of Sakine Cansiz. The second document is even more explosive. It's the recording of a meeting in which Omer Guney was apparently present from a few months before the assassinations. This recording was posted anonymously on YouTube.
Eldiven kullanmayı düşünüyorsun. Evet, kesinlikle. Silah bezli olmayacak. Mermilerde şarjörü bırakılır. Peki bunun...
That's the voice of Omer Guney. It's been authenticated by police scientists in Lyon. This 9-minute recording seems to be a work meeting between Guney and 2 of his superiors. Together, they go through a large plan of executions of the highest European members of the PKK. And it's Omer Guney who's in charge of pushing the button. The first target that he is assigned is Nedim Seven, the second in command of the PKK in Europe, who is a refugee in France.
Oraya gizlenip Nedim'e susturucuyla 3 tane sıkmak mesele değil. Bunu yaparsın. Bu kolay tarafı. Bunun esas önemli olan tarafı kaçma, kurtulma ve yakalanmama. Evet.
Guney's superiors also order him to kill Sia and Sorol, 2 other leaders of the PKK, also exiled in France. Finally, in 4th place on this macabre list is a former Kurdish minister from Turkey, now a refugee in Belgium, Remzi Kartal. A few days after the audio recording and the mission order were revealed, the Turkish secret services reacted with this statement. The Kurds concerned are convinced that Turkey has indeed planned to neutralize them. Involved for a long time with peace talks with the Turks, the 4th target, Remzi Kartal, today lives under high security in Brussels. We find him inside this well-guarded residence. Hello, Sylvain Louvet from Canal+. I have an interview with Mr. Remzi Kartal. Hello, thanks. For this political head of the PKK, the recording posted on YouTube is probably authentic, as it corroborates information that he received at that period.
Remzi gelecek mi? Remzi geliyor oraya.
Benim de ismimin içinde olduğu bazı Kürt siyasilerine yönelik bu tür suikast timlerinin Avrupa'ya gönderildiği duyumunu almıştık.
Where did you get this information?
Bu bilgi hem Türk devletinin içinden hareketimize ulaşan bazı kanallardan, Türk devletinin içinden hareketimize ulaşan kanallardan aldığımız bilgiydi. Ayrıca bazı Avrupa ülkelerinden de bu konuyla ilgili bilgi aldık. Belki de fırsat bulamadılar. Bu ismi geçenleri, içinde benim de olduğum insanları katletmeye fırsatını bulamadılar. Sakine Cansiz ve diğer iki arkadaş onlar için uygun bir fırsat oldu. O fırsatı değerlendirdiler.
At the time of the murders, the Turkish Prime Minister was Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And according to the former second-in-command of the MIT, who agreed to let us in on a few secrets, Erdogan completely controlled the secret services.
2000 yıllardan sonra Türkiye'de yükselen demokratikleşme adımları ile birlikte askeri müdahalelerin ortadan kaldırdığı bir süreç içerisinde MİT'in tamamen siyasi otoriteye bağlı olduğunu söylememiz gerekiyor. Başbakanın dışında, hükümetin politikaları dışında MİT'in hareket etmesi veyahut da MİT içindeki bir grup iddialarının hareket etmesi gibi bir durum hiçbir zaman mümkün olmadığını ben ifade edebilirim.
Do you think this murder was ordered without the consent of Mr. Erdogan?
Hayır, onun iradesi dışında değildir. Doğrudan her şey Erdoğan'ın bilgisi dahilindedir.
So Erdogan is behind this assassination?
Evet.
No doubt.
No.
The former second-in-command of the Turkish secret services is less convinced, as at the time of the murders, Erdogan had begun a peace process with the Kurds.
Yani cinayetin çok profesyonelce olduğu kesin. Gizli servis bağlantılarının olma ihtimali de yüksek. Ama Türkiye devletinin barış şartlarını geliştirirken böyle bir cinayeti yaptırması rasyonel olarak düşünülebilecek bir konu değil.
In Turkey, a lot of questions have been asked about Erdogan's involvement in this triple homicide. A minister even questioned him officially in parliament with very precise questions.
Katil zanlısı Ömer Güney'in MİT'le ilişkisi ne düzeydedir? Paris cinayetin aydınlatılması için herhangi bir çalışma yürütülmekte midir? 9 Ocak 2013 tarihinde Paris'te böyle bir katliam yaşanacağından başta MİT olmak üzere herhangi bir devlet biriminin haberi var mıydı? Bir sorduğum soru bu. Diğeri de...
All these questions were asked in writing by the Turkish minister at the assembly.
Türkiye'de MİT mensuplarının doğrudan soruşturma hakkına sahip değiller.
Did you receive an answer of Mr. Erdogan?
Yok. Yani maalesef yani iş tüzük yarınca bunlara işte 90 gün içerisinde cevap vermesi lazım. İlgili bakanlığın, başbakanlığın. Ama aradan geçen 2 yıllık süreden daha fazla bir süre geçti. Hiçbirisine cevap alamadık.
In reality, in this case, Erdogan responded several times. In the days after the crime, he puts forward the hypothesis of an internal crime at the PKK.
Kendi işlerinde bölücü terör örgütünün bir hesaplaşması da olabilir.
He begins by denying any involvement of the Turkish secret services. Then, when the recording and the mission order implicating the Turkish secret services are published, Erdogan doesn't mention this hypothesis again. Behind these murders, carried out during a peace process with the Kurds, he blames his principal political rival, Fethullah Gulen, in exile in the United States.
Haince sabotaj girişimlerinin bazılarının arkasında Pensilvanya çetesi var.
According to Erdogan, it is clear that the assassinations in Paris were ordered by those close to Fethullah Gulen, who had infiltrated the MIT and who wanted to prevent peace with the Kurds. For Remzi Kartal, this doesn't matter. The crimes were committed with the goal of making the Kurds yield during the peace process.
Yani bir taraftan görüşmeleri sürdürmek, işte İmralı sürecini başlatmak. Bir taraftan da bu katliamlarla Kürt tarafını sıkıştırmayı, Kürt tarafını zorlamayı, AKP'ye göre bir sonuç elde etmeyi hedeflediler.
Elected president in 2014, Erdogan has never tried to shed light on this matter. He has, however, made it so his MIT agents can stop being worried by legality by simply changing the law on intelligence.
Şunu anlatıyor, yani herhangi bir savcı daha sonraki bir tarihte çıkar, bir soruşturma başlatır, MİT mensuplarıyla ilgili olarak başlatabilir, teorik olarak mümkündü bu. Ama bu yasadan sonra Paris cinayetleri dahil olmak üzere MİT yasasını değiştirdi. Ki bu olaya karıştığı iddia edilen MİT mensuplarıyla ilgili olarak bir soruşturma yapılamasın. Herhangi bir savcı, başbakan izin verirse ancak soruşturma yapılabilir. O soruşturmayı da ancak ve ancak suç nerede işlenmiş olursa olsun, İstanbul'da, İzmir'de, yurt dışında nerede olursa olsun, Ankara'da önceden atanmış belli savcı ve hakimler.
To protect his secret services, Erdogan really has thought of everything. If today the justice system can no longer investigate any matters that are linked to the MIT, nor the press, with the new law, journalists who are interested in matters that are deemed to be sensitive by the Turkish secret services, they are now facing up to 10 years in prison. We won't lie, we weren't very reassured at the idea of going to our next meeting. After dozens of emails and phone calls, we finally managed to get an interview in Ankara with an advisor of the Turkish Prime Minister. Could you tell us if you tried to find out if Omer Guney really was an MIT agent or not?
Omer Guney ile ilgili şunu çok net bir şekilde söyleyebilirim. Bu iddianın hiçbir karşılığı yok, hiçbir legal tarafı yok. Hiçbir delil yok ortada. Spekülasyon ve propaganda ekseni üzerinden ortaya konulan bir şey.
So you can confirm that Omer Guney is not an MIT agent?
Karıştıysa MİT mensubu değildir. Karışıp karışmadığını ben bilmiyorum. Hani benim bildiğim bir dava değil.
We decide to then show him the mission letter which implicates the Turkish secret services. And the interview takes another turn. What do you think of this?
Bunun hiçbir karşılığı yok. Bu kağıdın. Kağıt parçasının hiçbir karşılığı. Bu bir kağıt parçası.
It's in this mission letter that we can read the assassination of Sakine was ordered and signed off by members of the MIT.
Bana bir kağıt parçası gösteriyorsunuz.
What do you think about
Ne
this?
yapmaya çalışıyoruz burada?
But it's important to hear an official point of view since the MIT is under the responsibility of the Turkish state. And now Omer Guney is suspected of being a member of the MIT, so...
Görev alanımda değil. Yani kaçıncı söyleyişim olacak bu? Bakın biraz daha ısrar edersek ben bunu kapatmak zorunda kalacağım. Yani bütün röportajı iptal edelim, kasetleri de alalım. Bu böyle gitmeyecek çünkü yani. Ve bunların bu bölümün kullanılmayacağının garantisini istiyorum.
Is it possible?
Kamera görüntüsünü bir kapatalım.
Is it possible?
Şimdi bakın, ben önünüze bir kağıt parçası koyup kapattık mı?
Okay. We comply, but the sound continues to record.
I'm just talking out of, just as a conversation. Turkey, if we are so interested in killing the leaders of PKK, we have hundreds of them in Kandil. Several of them in different parts of Europe. Why France? Why Paris?
Finally. I think we're close to a diplomatic crisis. We leave Turkey with our images, but no answers. And we're not the only ones. In 3 years, Turkey hasn't deigned to respond to the letter of request from the French justice system on the murders of Sakine, Fidan and Leyla. We have to say that our politicians haven't insisted very hard to hold their Turkish ally accountable. Realpolitik in play? In any case, in spring 2013, 3 months after the assassinations, Airbus sold 117 planes to Turkish Airlines and 75 to the low-cost airline Pegasus. At the same time, Arriva and GDF Suez won a bid to construct a new nuclear power station, a $15 billion deal. Certainly enough to encourage François Hollande to learn some words of Turkish, while on an official visit to his new friend, Erdogan. Remember that in this case, Manuel Valls had promised transparency.
Soyez assurés de la détermination des autorités françaises pour faire la lumière sur cet acte.
Despite our many requests, the Prime Minister did not wish to respond to our questions.
N'hésitez pas à rappeler, mais pour l'instant, on n'a pas de retour. Ok, ben, écoutez, je relance, pas de souci, hein.
But when we went to get it ourselves in January 2016 on one of his trips in Paris,
Aujourd'hui, la France a donc les moyens de créer plus de croissance, plus de...
that day we really did try everything. Mr. Valls, 3 years ago you promised to do everything to shed light on the assassination of 3 Kurdish militants in Paris. The inquiry shows the involvement of Turkey, but it's important. It's important. We've been chasing after you for months. Why has the French government not held the Turkish government accountable, Mr. Valls? Why don't you want to talk about this subject, Mr. Valls? Is it French realpolitik which is stopping you, holding Turkey accountable? Mr. Valls, this assassination of 3 Kurdish militants is important. It's an important subject, Mr. Valls. We will perhaps have the answers in a few months when Omer Guney's trial opens in Paris. From his cell in Fresnes, the prime suspect proclaims his innocence, but he clearly doesn't want to appear before a French court. In January 2014, in a visiting room, he asked one of his close friends to organise his escape. For that, he gave him the address of a mysterious contact in Ankara, without knowing that the French guards were recording the conversation. We went to check what this address was, and guess where we end up? At the headquarters of the Turkish Secret Service.